intro. Nice. Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for a match preview as Villa take on Wolves at Villa Park tomorrow night. This show is in association with Luke Roper. If you use the code TVV20, you'll get 20% off everything Luke Roper has to offer, including their new Dapper Villain range, I believe. I've had a look at that stuff tonight. So, yeah, if you want to get 20% off that stuff, off sale stuff as well, which is always helpful, then, yeah, use the code TVV20 and you'll get 20% off. What's going on here? Absolutely no idea. Oh, we've got some graphics. There we go, Neil. Neil, what do you make of that gear?
I can't see it.
Oh, okay.
It's fantastic. Oh, there it is. I see it now. Luke's gear is always fantastic. So it was, I actually really like it. I like
Okay.
that jumper.
Great, yeah. Nice little Villa badge on the side as well. Daniel Salter assures me there was an intro, but let me tell you, Daniel Salter, I didn't see it. Here from the delights of my Brentford hotel room. Global show, to be fair, Neil. Brentford, absolutely. Ireland. We're coming from everywhere, aren't we? Villa, Aston Villa, global club.
Villa are massive.
Yeah, no? Not so massive in Brentford, particularly. I've not seen any Villa fans in my hotel.
Is anyone sober in Brentford? Are they still out celebrating last night's result?
It's very eerily quiet, actually. It's very quiet around here today when I checked in this evening. Didn't see many people around at all. So, yeah, no Brentford fans still celebrating from that excellent result they had against Liverpool. Enough about Brentford anyway. We're here to preview Villa playing Wolves tomorrow night. Local derby, Neil. I'll start off. Let's get the bad stuff out of the way first. I'm still haunted by that game against them in 2021. It was 2021, wasn't it? Yeah, 2021 against Wolves. The last time we met them at Villa Park. Have Wolves ever scored 3 goals again since that day? Probably not, but a horrible, horrible day with 10 minutes left as Villa contrived to throw away a 2-goal lead. We will hope to see no repeat of that at all tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah, and we're a completely different animal. That was the first of the 5 in a row losing for Smith, which ultimately did him in. I think, that Wolves game, Paddy was at it, and he was. I remember I mess it. It's my fault. I need to come clean. It's my fault we lost that day because I text Paddy. I said, "Great that yourself and Stephen, his son, could be at the game. First game back that they had been back in after lockdowns and stuff like that. Great to see a lovely 2-0 win that we've controlled."
Silly,
and then 10 minutes later, I was texting him going, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. So sorry."
Yeah. You've gone early. Don't ever do it. I would have expected you to know better. Neil. An absolutely disgusting text to send when a Villa game's not finished.
The exuberance of youth. That's what that was.
Someone sent me a text. A Spurs fan that I know sent me a text with 10 minutes left against Spurs on Sunday, congratulating me. I was like, "Whoa, the lads, a long way to go." Yeah, I've done this dance before. I wasn't having that at all. I hate stuff like that. Yeah, never count your chickens before they've hatched, Neil. Davey Lads 23 giving me a chance to plug my shows on Sky Sports News tomorrow, asking me what time I'm on. Davey Lad 23, I am on between, it would help if I knew the answer to that question, 9 and 10 and 12 and 1. So, yeah, I've got a nice 4:45 a.m. alarm to come in the morning. But, yeah, I'll be on Sky Sports News for the transfer shows 9 till 10 and 12 till 1 tomorrow and Thursday. This week I've got 2 this week and next week as well, I believe. So yeah, 2 shows this week. Make sure you tune into them. Hopefully I'll get to talk about Villa doing some transfer business. Should probably start with that now. Looks like Cameron Archer might be on his way to Middlesbrough on loan for the rest of the season. Middlesbrough going well at the moment, would be a good move for the lad. Did well at Preston on loan in the second half of last season. Seems to like a second half of the season loan. Needs to go because he's on the bench every week, but he's not getting any minutes.
Yeah, and we're going to bring in firepower. Whether it's a big money signing, I think they will go and they will push the boat out for a striker in January.
I thought you said we are going to bring in Firpo. Then I was thinking, who's that? I've never heard of that striker.
Might as well try and play him up front. I've won more money off Firpo getting booked. I wanted to stay where he is, but no, firepower. I think we'll bring in. It's going to be tough to bring in a striker because we're not the only club. Strikers in the world are in short supply. And they have been for the last 2 or 3 years because they get snapped up every time they show promise. But yeah, for Cameron Archer, this for me would be perfect for Cameron Archer. Albeit he may not see tons of game time. I think he'd obviously see more than he was here than he would here. Aaron Danks is now at Borough with Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick has Borough playing some silky stuff. You know, they were in free fall before he took over. He's had a great winning winning start to his tenure that's there. They're playing some really good stuff. And as I say, Aaron Danks is in there with him, so he knows what Cameron Archer can do. And that arm around the shoulder is worth its weight in gold for a young man coming in there. I also think, when you think about the loan strategies that we've had before, Tim Bunum goes down to Michael Beale. Now, obviously, Michael Beale is left there, but that was it. That was good for him to settle in. Aaron Ramsey goes to Norwich. He's now back home. Maybe that was a case of, okay, if you sack Dean Smith, we're just going to recall our Aaron
He's got
Ramsey
a bad
because
injury, hasn't he? I think he's coming back
I,
to have his bad
I don't
injury
think I
looked
don't
at,
think
I
it's too
believe.
bad. I think he
Oh,
said
I
that.
got told it was bad.
Was it
Yeah, that's what
okay?
I got told. That's why
Yeah,
he's coming back due to his
I know he
injury.
had the
Could be
surgery.
wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, could be wrong, but yeah, Villa obviously want to look after him themselves. We've got John Steele podcast making his way around the podcast by the looks of things. So the third podcast I've said this on, but for anyone worried about our recent record against Wolves, remember Emery's the hoodoo killer. 4-0 to the Villa. Love that
Love it.
optimism. Yeah, I mean he did do the Manchester United hoodoo, and we hadn't had a great record against Spurs either, in all fairness. But I don't know if he's watching. AVFC Stato put out a tweet earlier in the week
Oh, I
about
never played.
Villa playing teams that begin with W. We haven't beaten a team that begins with W for a very long time. What a stat! Where does he pull those
What
from?
a statistic! I had some statistics lined up that he gave me. I forgot to play him on our own pad there, so that's why my reaction was there. I'm dosed to the gills on pseudoephedrine at the moment, so
Yeah, Neil not
yeah,
very well.
everything is. This is great. This is a fantastic experience at the moment. So I do apologize if more weird and wonderful things than normal come out of my mouth today.
Well, you've already said that we were signing Junior Firpo to play up front, so there's all sorts coming out. If AVFC Stato is watching, get some of your stats up, Stato, and we'll get them up on the screen, including that one against teams beginning with W. That wasn't a good omen at all when I saw that earlier on in the week. But he does post a lot of bad omens, to be fair to him. He always finds something that makes you worry about the game. One thing we should be maybe slightly worried about, Neil, is injuries, because
Yes.
feels like we're lacking numbers a little bit in midfield, particularly wide midfield at the moment, which is probably one of the areas we want to address in January. McGinn's been playing there, hobbled off. Louise in the middle got a great blossoming partnership with Kamara. He went off injured as well, although the fact that he's done the interview suggests to me that he may be okay. McGinn, though, that would be a blow because he's coming towards some form. He put out a social media post, didn't he, saying didn't really enjoy 2022. Hopefully 2023 could be better. At least he's ended 2022 on a positive. Maybe there's a purple patching coming, but there won't be if he's pulled his hamstring.
He's definitely not playing. No. McGinn's out. McGinn's got McGinn isn't playing. When that pings, it pings, and there's no amount of strapping or there's no amount of red light therapy or cryotherapy that you can go through that's going to get your hamstring back within 4 days. So, don't think he's rested. Douglas Luiz, I think, was more of a dead leg, thankfully. But once again, it would be great to see Douglas Luiz play, but I've like Leandro Dendoncker was supposedly ill at the weekend. That's why he didn't line up. If he's fit to play, if he's back, and if he's over that illness, I think you start him and maybe you hold Douglas Luiz in reserve. If he's not 100%, we've got options in midfield. We also should play, like Matty Cash came on and played really well. That right wing midfielder.
I think he might play wide.
I think he might too. And if the two guys aren't 100%, you can play Matty Cash there. You can play Leander Dendoncker in the middle. And obviously, you've got McGinn, John Steele says there as well. I don't think he's going to play McGinn and Buendia in the same team.
Do you mean Coutinho?
Sorry, Coutinho and Buendia in on either flank, because I think that would just leave us. Yeah, and it just leaves us a small bit open unless he absolutely has to. I think Sanson might get a look in. He's made the bench a couple of times. Made bench recently. Made the bench at the weekend. Should I say? But I would be very, very, very worried. Not worried, but I'd be kind of ropey about starting Callum Chambers inside midfield beside Boubacar Kamara. He's very handsy for me, albeit he can play with the ball at his feet. He's very handsy, and we saw it at the weekend in the short period of time he played in midfield as well.
Yeah, because Coutinho coming in for McGinn, McGinn's obviously not a wide midfielder, but in this Emery way of playing, it works. If you bring Coutinho in, they're not offering the same skill set in that role. You kind of feel like Coutinho may play if Buendia was to have an injury or Buendia wasn't to play. Coutinho may come in for him. Maybe Coutinho could play in one of the central forward kind of roles and Bailey move to the wings. My thoughts were that maybe Ings would play up top with Watkins and Bailey might move back to the wing. But again, Bailey playing instead of McGinn, they're not going to do the same thing. So it'll be interesting to see what Emery does tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's what makes me think, he's going to solidify. Like Prudence is he's not a pretty decent player. He's a very decent player, and he's quick and he can get at you, and he's going to be playing that left side of midfield. Now, he may not be the best player that Ashley Young comes up against, but he's latent speed and he's latent pace. So having somebody like a Leon Bailey there who has pace but can't really defend the ball, I don't really want to see that. I don't want to see somebody matching pace for pace. I'd prefer if Matty Cash was in there, who was maybe able to defend him, was maybe able to cut him off a small bit further up the field so before he builds up pace. And I'm okay with that because I thought it worked pretty okay. And I also have this thing where it's not a criticism, but one of the things I always say about Matty Cash is Matty Cash, for the amount of balls that he gets on the edge of the area or wide, and he takes it to the edge of the area and crosses the balls in. He's done that for 2.5 years. I want to see him burst into the box and win a penalty. And I think the reason that he hasn't done that is because obviously playing as right back, if you get dispossessed, you leave the whole flank free. Whereas now when he has Ashley Young behind him, maybe he's able to burst into the box. I just want to see him win a penalty because I think he's got all the talent in the world to do that. And maybe when he doesn't have to worry about looking over his shoulder and getting back that much more, maybe he has the opportunity to burst into the box. And maybe this weekend is the time for him to do that. So for me, I think Cash is the option there for Unai Emery. And he'll try and solidify that side of the field and see if we can play through the middle like we did against Spurs.
I think if Cash plays and he does play this right midfielder, I think he'll actually score tomorrow night. That's my big prediction that we can come back and replay. I think if Cash plays right mid, I think he'll score. He chipped in with 3 goals, I think, last season. Towards the back end of the season, he was pretty useful in front of goals with assists and goals, actually. So, yeah, that's my prediction if he plays right midfield. I think he might play, he might score. It's weird, isn't it? Because, you talk about playing basically your right back at right midfield, and if other Villa managers had done that, you'd be sat here thinking, what are they doing? Absolutely clueless. But because it's Emery and he does these tactical masterclasses, you just automatically back it, don't you?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Well, it's because he doesn't just paint by numbers as a manager, Unai Emery. He hasn't really done that for quite a while. He'd prefer to have a player in there he thinks can execute the plan as opposed to putting in the player everybody thinks he's going to put in there. I hope I'm making sense with that, because if you remember when he played with Villarreal, like at some stages he would have had Coquelin and Edin Capoue, wide midfielders, and never in their lives in the Premier League did they play those positions. Maybe Capoue did for a short period of time, but what they were able to do is they were able to create that buffer zone, and that's realistically what, like, Buendia hasn't hit the heights for Aston Villa. He scored a goal at the weekend. I thought sometimes his passing was out of place, but his defensive work was really on point, and he was busting himself to get back there. And it's that kind of endeavour that Unai Emery wants. And to be honest with you, Aston Villa fans roll behind somebody who gets involved and tracks back, specifically midfielders. I know when you're talking about strikers, you want a bit more, you want goals, and there's the Ollie Watkins age-old question. But when you've got those midfielders that work back and cover their full backs and get into those positions and give 110%, they get appreciated. So I think that Unai Emery could have a trick up his sleeve, but I think we've seen that trick in Matty Cash playing that wide midfielder role, and I think that's who we see again.
Yeah, Mike Roch trying to catch me out there says Wolves right backs are hopeless. Get Bailey down the left running at them. I've got to agree with that. To be fair, I watched Wolves against Manchester United on whatever day. I've lost track of the days. Semedo is an accident waiting to happen. I'm yet to see him have an accomplished game for Wolves, and I've heard on the grapevine as well that Johnny's pretty off form at the moment, who I believe would probably play there if Semedo didn't, because Bueno has been doing well on the left-hand side for Wolves. So, right back, has been a problem area for Wolves, and that's one that Villa, I think, can exploit. They were unlucky against Manchester United at the weekend, Neil, but as usual with Wolves, this is dangerous for me to say, but they don't have a goal. They don't have a goal threat. Diego Costa, usually I'd be worried because, someone hasn't scored a goal for a club yet. Yeah. We know we've done that dance many times before. He may score, but generally I'm not worried by Wolves up front because they just look so toothless and so devoid of ideas when they get into the penalty area. It all seems to fall down, and that's probably been the case for 2-3 years now.
That's true. Yeah, Bruno Lange came in. He was tasked with getting them solidified at the back, but that'll only take you so far unless you're scoring goals. That's one of the good things since Unai Emery has come in, is that were scoring goals. We had only scored under Steven Gerrard. We weren't scoring goals either. When you extrapolate that out over the course of a season, you see where Wolves kind of begin to get frustrated with the defensive mentality, because you can only do that for so long. And they still are struggling to score goals. But Lopetegui has only recently come in there. As I say, it's going to be an interesting battle between the two managers.
Two
They've already
accomplished
faced off
managers.
against each other already. Two Spanish managers, two highly thought of Spanish managers as well. They'll know each other inside out. I wonder, do they maybe try and change things up because of that notability factor that they'll have with each other? But when you mentioned about their toothlessness up top, that's why I think that they're going to play a Adama Traore and Podence, and they're going to try and run at us. And I think that they might say, right, let's try and win penalties here, because if we can get a goal early, specifically away from home, catch this team in the break, well, that might help us a small bit more, because they can't really say that they can pin their collar to the mast and or pin their colours to the mast with regards to a solid central striker, because Diego Costa is the only one that they really have fit at the moment.
Yeah, Jimenez came off the bench against
Jimenez,
Manchester United, but he's a shadow of his former self at the moment. Obviously, had horrific trauma with the injury that occurred a few years ago, but he's not the player that was linked with many teams. Actually, Jimenez, when he was playing well for Wolves up top before his injury, he just isn't the same player. But Wolves have got Neves, a player who's done very well against Villa over the year, scored 2 or 3 goals against us since we returned to the Premier League. In fact, he's still there, the captain now. Everything will go through him. Villa will need to have a plan to shut him down in midfield now.
Yeah. Cultured player. I don't think he's with Wolves much longer than the 2022.
Well, people have been saying that for a long time.
I think Barcelona won't be busy in January, but I think I don't know why he just screams Barcelona to me. Ruben Neves, Busquets leaving, maybe Neves comes in there and takes up that spot. But he's a cultured player. You look at him, came in with great fanfare. No one expected that he would ever move to the team like Spurs, and he has, and he stayed there, and he's been
Nails drugs are doing him.
Well, they haven't.
You said Spurs instead of Wolves.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay, well, drugs are definitely doing me. Yeah. But no one thought he'd move to Spurs either, and he won't.
And he did,
yes. But yeah, no one thought he would move to Wolves, and he did, and that was obviously the George Mendes connection there. He's still only 25 years of age. I find that incredible, because
I thought he was older.
Yeah, I would have had maybe 27, maybe 28 in him. But I think that he is destined for probably moving on. But whoever is going to sign him is going to have to open up their checkbook, because he's going to be a 50 million plus player, because he can do everything really well, but he's not spectacular at anything, if that makes sense. And sometimes, those guys, are as good as anything else, and they do convert an awful lot of money, specifically when they're steady eddies in midfield. And I think that somebody will open the book for him. But yeah, keep him away from those pingers from about 30 yards, because we definitely don't want him taking any of those in injury time against us, because we're still stung after that one.
Yeah, everything Villa saying Wolves' midfield is their only real strength, and if Kamara has a game like he did against Spurs, the result isn't even in question. I would say there's a lack of mobility in that central Wolves midfield with Neves and Moutinho, both cultured footballers, but that if you get around them and you press them, I don't think they particularly like that. They're not the most mobile going back the other way. And Kamara was in scintillating form against Spurs. Does everything that you'd want a number 6 to do. Luiz as well. He's in great form. Probably playing a bit more of it as a 6.5, maybe even sometimes an 8. Obviously, as we saw for the goal as well. Those two, if we can dominate the midfield with those two, I mean, wasn't that long ago we were absolutely laying into our midfield, saying it was absolutely hopeless. Now we're talking about it being one of the strongest areas of our team. What do you think happens with the goalkeeper now? Do you think Emi Martinez comes in? I'm starting to think now, from the word on the street, that Emi Martinez may return to the fold against Wolves at Villa Park.
Yeah, I think he does. I think Emi Martinez is in 4 days, 5 days, whatever it is of training behind him. I think he comes back in. Patting the back for Robin Olsen for his game against Spurs at the weekend. Didn't do anything wrong. Did quite a lot right, and he can hold his head high after that game. And I think it's time Emi Martinez comes in again, but we won't know until tomorrow at 10-7. And as I say, it's going to be a talking point if he isn't, because you can be guaranteed then the next time that you're sitting inside in Sky Sports towers that there's going to be a question asked about Emi Martinez if he doesn't start.
I'll be getting that. When I'm thinking, I wonder if I get to talk about Villa over the next few days. It could
It'll
be
be
that, couldn't
anyway.
it? Although if he's going to be going, it won't be in January.
No, no.
It would be in the summer. I imagine all that speculation would
Yeah.
come. So if I'm still on board in the summer, yeah, I definitely imagine that question may come my way. I think that probably does us now. So before we go, I will ask you for your prediction for tomorrow night.
I'm going to go 2-1 Aston Villa. Just because, as I say, um, I suppose, get in front of the panic when the Wolves haven't scored in ages, and obviously when a striker has never scored, and then they come to Villa Park, they always bring their shooting boots. But I think the Villa have a bit about them so far. I think the goals will come. I think Ollie Watkins scores tomorrow, and I think another goal comes from midfield, from who I don't know. I'd like it to be Buendia. I'd like him to get a couple of things, get things moving and get things rolling, because he's had a very stuttery start to his Aston Villa career, and we can see it all in his face. He wants to win so much. He wants to be part of the team, and he seems like a guy who just loves playing football. And I think goals are going to be something that are going to really bring him along. So I'm going to go with Ollie Watkins and Buendia and a 2-1 Aston Villa win.
I'm going to go with Duncan Kilburn's prediction. I'm going to go the same. I'm going to go Villa to win 3-1, mainly because I obviously can't be there because of work. It's the first home game I've missed all season. So you can almost put your house on Villa getting 3 points when I'm not there. Very rarely have I missed a game at home, apart from obviously COVID. And when I do, Villa always seem to win. So that's a good omen going into tomorrow. I'm pretty sure Villa will win due to the fact I'm not there. Neil, thanks ever so much for joining me on your deathbed. I really, really appreciate it. I know you've just done your podcast as well, so thanks for jumping straight on and doing this preview with me. Don't forget Luke Roper. If you use the code TVV20 at checkout, you'll get 20% off everything they have to offer on their store. Some lovely garments. So treat yourself if you've got some Christmas money left over. Get yourself some Luke stuff, especially that Dapper Villa range that they've just brought out. Some lovely gear on show with a Villa feel to it. If you want to join Sky Sports News in the morning, I will be around the famous desk 9 till 10 and 12 till 1. Would be lovely for some Villa fans to tune in, and hopefully I'll get to talk about Villa as well, because hopefully some rumours will start to swirl about Villa doing transfer business. We will be back with a post-match point at some point. Keep your eye on the socials and we'll let you know when that's coming, and also subscribe to the channel with your post notifications on. Enjoy the game tomorrow if you go in or wherever you're watching, and as always, up the Villa.